first thing I heard was a slow beeping sound. Beep, beep, beep. It was steady, like a clock that never got tired. My eyelids felt heavy, like someone had put tiny sandbags on them. I tried to open my eyes, but my body didn't listen right away. My mouth was dry. My throat felt scratchy, like I had swallowed dust. When I finally forced my eyes open, the ceiling lights looked blurry and bright at the same time. Everything smelled clean, like soap and plastic. A thin blanket covered me, but I still felt cold under my skin. I turned my head a little. The room was quiet, too quiet. No talking, no footsteps, no familiar voice. I blinked again and again, waiting for shapes to become clear. A pale curtain hung to my left. A metal stand with a clear bag of liquid hung beside me. Tubes ran down to my arm. A small screen near my bed showed green lines that jumped with every beat of my heart. I knew this place. Hospital. My mind tried to catch up like it was running after a bus. Surgery. That's right. The doctor had said it was needed. He had said it would help me breathe better, help me move without so much pain. He had spoken gently like he didn't want to scare me. I remembered signing papers with shaky hands. I remembered Tom's face, serious and tight. My husband always looked like that when money was involved. He had driven me here early in the morning. He had complained about the traffic. He had complained about the waiting room chairs. He had complained about the price of the coffee in the lobby. But he had been there. Before. I turned my head to the other side, expecting to see him in a chair. Maybe sleeping with his arms crossed. Maybe scrolling on his phone with that annoyed look he always wore. But the chair was empty. The space beside my bed felt wide and lonely, like an open door to a cold hallway. My heart started to beat faster. The green line on the monitor jumped higher. "Tom?" My voice came out like a whisper made of paper. "Tom?" No answer. I tried to sit up, but my stomach pulled and my whole body screamed, "Not yet." Pain shot through me, sharp and sudden. I gasped and fell back onto the pillow. Tears filled my eyes without asking permission. Maybe he stepped out, I told myself. Maybe he went to the restroom. Maybe he went to get water. But then another thought came, quieter and darker. What if he left? The idea felt silly at first. People didn't leave someone after surgery. Not if they loved them. Not if they cared. I looked around again, searching for any sign that he had been here. A jacket, a paper cup, a crumpled receipt. Nothing. My fingers trembled as I reached for the call button. It was a small plastic remote with a red button on it. I pressed it like it was the only rope keeping me from falling into a deep pit. A moment later, the curtain shifted. A nurse stepped in. She was middle-aged with kind eyes and neat hair tucked under her cap. Her shoes made soft squeaks on the floor. A small badge on her chest had her name, Helen Brooks. She smiled right away when she saw my eyes open. "Oh, hi there," she said in a gentle voice. "Welcome back, Mrs. Hart. You're in recovery. Surgery went well." My lips moved, but only a dry sound came out. I swallowed and tried again. "Water," I whispered. Helen nodded quickly. "Of course, small sips." She lifted my head a little and held a cup with a straw to my mouth. The water was cool and sweet and made my throat feel less like sand. When she lowered the cup, I held onto her sleeve with weak fingers. I didn't mean to grab, I just needed to. "Nurse," I said, voice shaking, Where is my husband?" The smile on her face didn't vanish, but it changed. It became careful, like she was holding a fragile glass and didn't want to drop it. Her eyes flicked down to my hand, then back up to my face. She took a slow breath. I could tell she didn't want to answer. My stomach twisted with fear. "Please," I said. "Tom." "Where is he?" Helen pulled a stool closer and sat down beside my bed so she was level with me. That small action, sitting instead of standing, made my chest tighten even more. "People sit when they have bad news." I shook my head. "No," I whispered before she even spoke. "No, he's here. He has to be here." Helen's voice stayed soft, but her words were clear. "Mrs. Hart, your husband left. For a moment I didn't understand the sentence. It floated in the air like smoke. Left? My mouth opened but nothing came out. Helen continued, her eyebrows pulling together with sadness. He said the parking was too expensive. The room suddenly felt too bright, too big, too empty. I stared at her. My ears rang. I heard the beeping of the machine, but it felt far away now, like it was happening in another room. Parking was too expensive. That was the reason. Not an emergency, not a sick child, not a job call. Parking. My chest squeezed, my eyes burned, then the tears spilled over hot and unstoppable. I tried to stop them. I tried to be quiet. I didn't want to look weak, but I couldn't hold it in. A sob burst out of me, rough and loud. It hurt my stitches. It hurt my throat. It hurt my pride. I covered my face with my hands and cried like a child who got lost in a crowded place. Helen reached over and gently touched my shoulder. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want you to wake up like this." I shook my head behind my hands. I didn't even ask for much," I cried. I just wanted him to stay, just for a little." My mind flashed through moments at home. Tom counting bills at the kitchen table, Tom sighing when I needed medicine, Tom saying, "Do you know how much that costs?" Tom acting like I was a problem that kept growing. And now, this. Now he had left me after surgery. And the reason was a few coins in a parking lot. I felt something break inside me, not a bone, not a stitch, something quieter. Like the last bit of hope that he would ever choose me. Helen pressed a tissue into my hand. I took it, but my fingers were weak. The tissue crumpled. "I can call someone for you," Helen said. "A family member? A friend? Family." The word made me think of Nina, my granddaughter. But Nina was in school. Nina didn't even know I had woken up yet. And Tom. Tom was supposed to be my person. That was what husbands were meant to be. I wiped my tears, but more came right away. "I'm sorry," I whispered, embarrassed. "I'm making a mess." "You're not making a mess," Helen said firmly. "You're hurting. That's not a mess." I tried to breathe slowly the way the doctor had told me. In, out, in, out. But my chest kept shaking. Then the curtain moved again. I expected another nurse, maybe a doctor. Instead, a tall man stepped into the room. He wore a dark suit that looked expensive, but it wasn't flashy. His shoes were polished. His hair was neat. He looked like someone important, like someone who didn't need to raise his voice to be listened to. But his eyes were not cold. They were soft, almost worried, like he had walked in and seen something he didn't want anyone to face alone. Helen stood up quickly, surprised. "Sir?" The man lifted a hand, not rude, just calm, as if to say, "It's okay." He walked straight to my bedside. He didn't stare at my tears, he didn't act uncomfortable, he didn't pretend he hadn't seen me crying. He simply reached out and gently took my hand. His palm was warm, steady. The contact shocked me so much that my sobbing slowed for a second. He leaned closer like he didn't want his words to feel loud in my fragile room. "Mrs. Julia," he said softly. I blinked up at him through wet lashes. He gave a small, careful smile. "You don't remember me," he said. "But you paid for my lunch every day in 3rd grade." My breath caught in my throat. 3rd grade? I stared at his face, trying to match it with a memory. My head still felt cloudy, my heart still hurt, but something about his voice made me feel less alone. He squeezed my fingers gently, like he was holding something precious. And behind him I saw Nurse Helen's expression. Her eyes were wide, not scared, not angry, shocked, like this was someone she never expected to see in this room, holding the hand of a crying grandma. The tall man didn't look away from me. "I didn't forget what you did," he said. "Not once." I swallowed hard, still confused, still trembling. Who are you?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away. He just sat closer, still holding my hand, as if the answer was about to change everything I thought I knew about being left behind. The tall man stayed beside my bed, like he belonged there. Not like a stranger who was curious, not like a doctor who had to hurry away, like someone who came for me. My hand was still in his and I didn't pull away. His grip wasn't tight, but it was steady, like a fence that keeps you from falling. I blinked up at him again. The room still felt fuzzy, like my thoughts were wrapped in cotton, but his face was clear enough for me to see his eyes. They looked kind. And familiar in a way I couldn't explain. "Who are you?" I asked again, my voice small. He smiled, but it wasn't a proud smile. It was soft, like he didn't want to scare me. "My name is Adrian Cole," he said, "and I know this is strange. You just woke up. You're hurting. But I needed to see you." Nurse Helen stood near the curtain, watching like she was guarding the door. Her hands were folded in front of her. She looked nervous and relieved at the same time. I tried to sit up a little more, but pain pulled at my stomach. I winced. Helen rushed to adjust my pillow. "Slowly, Mrs. Hart. You just had surgery." "Thank you," I whispered, then looked back at the man. Adrian Cole. The name didn't ring a bell. I hated that. It made me feel like I was failing some test. He seemed to understand. He didn't look upset. "It was a long time ago," he said gently. "Third grade feels like a different life, doesn't it?" I let out a shaky breath. I don't remember paying for someone's lunch." His eyebrows lifted a tiny bit, like he expected that. "Most people wouldn't remember," he said. "You didn't do it for attention. You did it quietly." My cheeks warmed with embarrassment. "Are you sure it was me?" He nodded. "I'm sure." Then he looked down at my hand in his. His thumb moved once, like a calm tap. "I was the kid who never had enough," he said. "I used to sit at my desk and pretend I wasn't hungry. I tried to act tough, but I wasn't. I was just scared." My throat tightened. I could almost see it. A small boy with an empty lunchbox. A classroom with bright posters and tiny chairs. Children laughing. Children sharing snacks. And then, a girl. A child who noticed. Me. A small picture flickered inside my head. Like a memory trying to wake up, just like I had. I saw a lunch line. I saw coins in a palm. I saw a paper bag sliding across a table, but the picture faded before I could hold it. I swallowed. I'm sorry. My head feels foggy." "That's normal," Helen said quickly. "Anesthesia can do that." Adrian nodded. "You don't have to remember everything right now. I just wanted you to know something." He leaned closer so his voice didn't travel around the room. "You helped me when you didn't have to," he said. "You didn't ask for anything back. You didn't even tell anyone. But it changed me." My eyes stung again. Not the same way as before. This time, it was like something warm was pressing behind my ribs. What do you mean?" I whispered. Adrian's gaze didn't move from mine. "I mean, I didn't forget," he said. "And when I heard your name today, I came." He paused, as if choosing his next words very carefully. "I own this hospital." The sentence didn't fit in my head. Own. I stared at him, sure I had misheard. Then I looked at Nurse Helen. Helen's face confirmed it. She gave a small, respectful nod toward him, like this was true and everyone knew it. My mouth opened, then closed. The air felt thinner. My heart gave a hard thump. "The owner," I whispered. Adrian nodded once. "Yes." I couldn't understand why a hospital owner would come into a recovery room to hold my hand. Unless he truly remembered. Unless my small kindness had mattered more than I ever knew. I tried to speak, but my voice broke. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he told me. "You just woke up alone. That shouldn't have happened." The word alone hit me like a slap. My tears returned fast. I looked toward the empty chair again. "Tom," I whispered without thinking. Adrian's eyes followed mine. "Your husband?" he asked quietly. I nodded, ashamed all over again, like I had done something wrong by being left. Nurse Helen shifted her weight. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She looked angry now, but she held it in. Adrian's voice stayed calm. Helen told me what he said. I turned my face away, but Adrian didn't let go of my hand. I hated that my cheeks were wet again. I hated that my body felt weak. I hated that my husband's choice made me feel like trash. He said, "Parking," I whispered. "Yes," Adrian said. He said parking was too expensive. The words sounded even worse when someone else said them out loud. I shook my head slowly, like if I shook hard enough it might stop being true. He's always like that, always counting, always complaining. I tried to defend Tom. I didn't even mean to. The defense just jumped out because I had practiced it for years. "He gets nervous," I said. "Hospitals make him anxious. He doesn't like waiting. He doesn't like—" I swallowed. "He doesn't like spending." Nurse Helen made a small sound, like a tight breath through her nose, but she didn't speak. Adrian listened without interrupting. When I finished, he didn't argue. He just asked, "And what do you like, Mrs. Julia?" No one had asked me that in a long time. I blinked, confused. "What do I like?" "Yes," he said gently. "What do you need?" "What would make you feel safe right now?" Safe. The word felt like something from a storybook, like something meant for other people. I looked down at the blanket. "I don't want trouble," I whispered. "I don't want to be a burden." Adrian's face tightened just a little. His kindness didn't disappear, but something stronger came underneath it. "You are not a burden," he said. The firmness in his voice startled me. I stared at him. Then he softened again, like he knew he had raised his tone. "When you fed me in 3rd grade," he said, "you didn't call me a burden. You didn't treat me like I was annoying. You treated me like I mattered." My throat hurt. I wanted to say, but that was nothing, just lunch. But the way he spoke made me understand something. To him it wasn't nothing. It had been everything. Helen stepped forward. "Mrs. Hart, do you have someone you'd like me to call? A daughter? A son? A granddaughter?" "My granddaughter," I said quickly. The word came out before I could stop it because Nina's face popped into my mind like a light in the dark. "Nina?" I added. "She's in school. She doesn't even know I woke up." Adrian nodded. "Call her," he said to Helen. "Please." Helen glanced at him, then nodded like she was happy to have permission. "Yes, sir." She moved toward the phone on the wall. I watched her, feeling both grateful and embarrassed. Adrian looked back at me. "Do you want your husband called too?" he asked. I froze. My first instinct was yes. Of course. That's what a wife says. But my chest felt tight again, and my mind flashed back to the empty chair. The cold room, the words too expensive. I imagined Tom coming in annoyed, acting like I ruined his day, acting like the hospital stole his money. I didn't want that in my room right now. My voice trembled. Not yet. Adrian didn't look surprised. He just nodded once like he understood. "Okay," he said. "Not yet." Helen spoke into the phone softly, giving my name and room number. She asked for Nina's contact information from the file. She listened, then wrote something down. "Mrs. Hart," Helen said, covering the receiver, "we have Nina's number listed. I'm calling her now." My heart squeezed. Nina would be scared. Nina would be angry. A part of me wanted to protect her from that, but another part of me, one I hadn't listened to in years, wanted someone in my corner. Helen returned to the call. Adrian stayed with me, still holding my hand. I stared at him and tried to understand how this was real. A hospital owner, in my recovery room, holding my hand like I was important. It felt like the world had flipped upside down. I swallowed. Why did you come?" He answered without hesitation. "Because you were kind when no one had to be, and today you woke up hurting. You shouldn't have been alone." His eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger at me, but in something else, focus. "And I want to understand what's been happening to you," he said. The beeping machine kept its steady rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. But inside my chest, something new started to beat too. Not panic, not fear. Something like possibility. Helen turned back from the phone call. Her face had changed. "She's coming," Helen said. "Nina is on her way." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Adrian nodded, then looked at me again. "I'm going to ask you something, Mrs. Julia," he said quietly. His voice was still gentle, but it carried weight. "Has your husband always treated you like you cost too much?" The question landed in the room and stayed there, heavy and hard to ignore. I opened my mouth, and for the first time, I wasn't sure what the right answer was anymore. The question sat in the air after Adrian asked it. "Has your husband always treated you like you cost too much?" I wanted to answer fast. I wanted to make it simple, but my mouth didn't move right away. Because if I said yes, it would sound terrible, and if I said no, it would be a lie. My eyes drifted to the empty chair again. I could still see Tom in my mind. Standing in the hallway earlier that morning, tapping his foot, checking his watch, sighing like time itself was stealing from him. "I don't know," I whispered, even though deep inside, I did know. Adrian didn't push. He just nodded like he understood that some truths take time to come out. "I'm going to step out for a moment," he said, "but I'll be nearby." He gently set my hand down on the blanket, like he was placing something fragile in a safe spot. Before he left, he looked at Nurse Helen. "Please make sure she has what she needs, and let me know if anything changes." "Yes, sir," Helen replied. The moment Adrian stepped past the curtain, I heard the quiet shift of movement outside. Soft footsteps, low voices, a quick, "Good afternoon, Mr. Cole," from someone in the hall. Mr. Cole. Even hearing other people say his name felt strange, like I had somehow wandered into a different kind of life without meaning to. Helen came back to my bedside and checked my IV. She adjusted the blanket around my shoulders. "Try to rest," she said. "Your body needs it." I nodded, but my mind wouldn't stop. I kept thinking about 3rd grade, about lunch, about a boy with no food. Did I really do that? And if I did, how could such a small thing reach all the way to today? A few minutes later, a doctor entered. He wasn't rushed. His steps were calm and sure. He wore a white coat and carried a thin folder. "Mrs. Hart," he said. "Yes," I answered, my voice still weak. "I'm Dr. Samir Nasser," he said. "I'm your surgeon. How are you feeling?" Surgeon. The word made my stomach tighten. "Hurting," I admitted. "And dizzy." "That's expected," he said. "You've been through a lot. But the surgery went well. Very well." A small part of my chest unclenched. He explained in simple words what he had done, how the next few days would look, what pain was normal and what wasn't. He spoke like he wanted me to understand, not like he was trying to impress anyone. When he finished, he asked, "Do you have someone here with you?" My face warmed again. Before I could answer, Helen spoke softly. "Her husband left. Her granddaughter is coming." Dr. Nasser's eyes flicked to mine. His expression didn't turn cold. It turned careful, like he was choosing not to make me feel worse. "I'm sorry you woke up alone," he said. I swallowed hard. "It's okay," I lied. He didn't call it a lie. He simply moved on. "We'll keep an eye on you," he said. "And I want you to rest as much as you can." He made a small note in his folder, then paused at the foot of my bed. "Mrs. Hart," he said, lowering his voice a little. "There's something I want to clarify with you." My heart picked up speed again. "Yes?" I whispered. He tapped the folder gently, not threatening, just thoughtful. "Some of the paperwork was brought to my attention," he said. "Insurance forms and payment plan documents. They looked rushed." "Rushed?" I repeated. "Yes," he said, "like someone wanted them completed quickly. But you were in surgery, and afterward you were asleep. I want to make sure nothing was signed without you fully understanding it." My mouth went dry again. Tom. I didn't say his name, but it rose in my mind like a shadow. "I didn't sign anything today," I said, my voice shaking. Dr. Nasa nodded. That's good, and if anyone tries to bring you papers while you're still recovering, you can say no. You can ask for time. You can ask for a nurse to be present. Helen's face tightened. I'll make sure of it, she said. A new kind of fear slid into my stomach. Not the fear of pain, not the fear of surgery, the fear of being handled like a package someone wanted to move around. Dr. Nasa looked at me kindly. You are the patient, he said. Your voice matters here. When he left, I stared at the ceiling again, breathing slowly. Your voice matters. I hadn't heard words like that in a long time. The curtain shifted again. This time it wasn't a doctor, it was Nina. She burst in like a storm that had been holding its thunder outside the door. Her backpack was still on one shoulder. Her hair was slightly messy, like she had rushed out too fast. Her eyes were wide, shiny, and scared. Grandma, she cried. My heart squeezed so hard it almost hurt more than the stitches. Nina, I whispered. She hurried to my bedside and took my hand. Her fingers were warm, strong, and tight around mine, like she was making a promise without saying it. I got the call, she said quickly. I left school. I didn't even care what the teacher said. Are you okay? What happened? Why didn't anyone tell me sooner? I looked away, ashamed. I didn't want to worry you. Nina's eyebrows pulled together. Grandma, I'm worried anyway. Then her eyes darted to the empty chair. Where is he? She asked. Her voice changed. It got sharper. Where's Tom? I flinched at the way she said his name. Helen stepped closer, her voice calm. He left earlier. Nina stared at her like she didn't understand the words. He left? Nina repeated. Helen nodded. He said the parking was too expensive. Nina's face went still. Too still. Like all the anger inside her had frozen into one hard piece. You're joking, Nina said. Helen didn't answer because she didn't have to. The truth was sitting in the empty chair. Nina leaned closer to me, her eyes filling with tears. I'm here, she said, voice trembling. I'm not going anywhere, do you hear me? I'm staying. The tears that slipped down my cheeks this time didn't feel like shame, they felt like relief. I squeezed Nina's hand. Thank you, I whispered. Nina turned to Helen. Can I stay with her? Helen nodded. Yes, I'll bring you a chair. As Helen stepped out, Nina looked around the room like she wanted to fight the walls. Then she looked back at me, softer now. Grandma, she said, did he even tell you he might leave? I swallowed. My throat felt tight, but I forced the words out. He said he'd be back, I whispered. He always says that. Nina's eyes hardened again, but she kept her voice gentle for me. Then we stopped believing him, she said. A moment later, Adrian returned. He didn't come in loud. He didn't interrupt. He paused when he saw Nina holding my hand, and his face softened like he was glad I wasn't alone anymore. Nina, he asked, as if confirming. Nina stood halfway, protective. Yes. Who are you? Adrian didn't look offended. He simply nodded respectfully. I'm Adrian Cole, he said. I'm a friend of your grandmother's, from long ago. Nina glanced at me, confused. I tried to explain, but my words came slowly. He said I helped him when he was a boy. Nina's eyes narrowed, suspicious, then flicked to Helen, who gave a small nod like, it's true. Adrian kept his voice calm. Your grandmother showed me kindness when I was a child, he said. I came to return it. Nina looked back at me. Her grip tightened. For the first time since I woke up, the room didn't feel empty at all. It felt full. Of people who saw me, people who stayed, people who didn't measure me like a bill. And as I lay there with Nina beside me, I started to understand something I had avoided for years. Love doesn't make excuses to leave. Love shows up. Nina pulled the chair right up to my bed and sat like she was guarding a treasure. She didn't touch her phone much. She didn't complain about being tired. She just watched my face and the little screen that beeped beside me like she wanted to fight every bad thing with her eyes. I tried to smile at her, but my lips shook. Stop trying to look brave, Nina said quietly. You don't have to. That made my throat tighten. I turned my head away so she wouldn't see fresh tears. Nurse Helen came back with a second blanket and tucked it around my shoulders like she was wrapping me in safety. Thank you, I whispered. You're welcome, Helen said. Then she looked at Nina. If you need water or snacks, there's a vending area down the hall. Nina nodded. I'm not leaving her. Helen gave a small smile. You can take turns. I'll be here. After Helen left, the room went calmer. The lights were still bright, but not as harsh. The beeping felt less scary now that Nina was here. Adrian stood near the foot of my bed, hands folded, like he didn't want to take up too much space. You did the right thing coming, he told Nina softly. Nina didn't answer right away. She studied him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. You said you knew my grandma, Nina finally said. From 3rd grade. Adrian nodded. Yes. And you own the hospital, Nina said, more like a statement than a question. Yes, Adrian replied again. He didn't sound proud, he sounded serious. Nina's eyes narrowed. Why are you really here? The question made me tense. Nina wasn't rude, but she was careful. She had learned to be careful. I knew why. Adrian didn't get angry. He just moved closer and lowered his voice. Because your grandmother mattered to me when I was a child, he said, and I heard she woke up alone. Nina glanced at me, and her face softened. She shouldn't have been alone, she muttered. I swallowed. The words felt heavy. Nina leaned toward me. Grandma, she said gently, tell him what it's like at home. My stomach twisted. At home. The word should have felt safe, warm, like soup and blankets. But lately, home had felt like walking on thin ice. I didn't answer right away. My eyes found the corner of the room and stayed there, like looking away could hide my thoughts. Then something inside me opened. Maybe it was the medicine. Maybe it was the shock of being abandoned after surgery. Maybe it was the way Adrian held my hand, like I was still worth something. But the truth slipped out anyway. It's quiet, I whispered. Not peaceful quiet, just quiet. Nina's jaw tightened. Adrian waited. I took a slow breath. Tom doesn't yell much, I said. Not loud yelling. He uses other ways. What ways? Nina asked, her voice controlled. I closed my eyes and memories came like small flashes. Tom at the kitchen table with papers spread out, tapping a pen like a judge. Tom sighing when I asked for medicine. Tom looking at the price tag on an orange at the market and shaking his head like fruit was a luxury. Tom saying, "Do you really need that?" when I needed a new pair of shoes because mine had holes. Tom saying, "We can't afford your little extras," when my extra was pain cream for my knees. I opened my eyes again. My lashes were wet. "He counts everything," I said. "He counts like love is a bill." Nina swallowed hard. "He does that to you all the time," she said, not a question. I nodded once. It felt like admitting something shameful, even though it wasn't my shame to carry. Adrian's face changed. He didn't look shocked. He looked sad and focused. "You've been carrying this alone," he said quietly. I gave a small shrug even though it hurt. I didn't want to bother anyone. Nina leaned forward, her eyes bright. "Grandma, you are not a bother." The words hit me so deep that I couldn't speak for a moment. Then Nina looked at Adrian again. "You said she helped you," she said. "What did she do exactly?" Adrian smiled a little, and the smile held something old inside it. "When I was 8, he began, I came to school with nothing to eat. My mother worked 2 jobs. Some days there was food, some days there wasn't. I tried to act like it didn't matter." He paused, like he could see the classroom in his mind. "Your grandmother noticed," he continued. "She didn't point at me, she didn't announce it. She would just find a way." "A way how?" Nina asked. Adrian's voice stayed gentle. Sometimes she told the lunch lady she forgot her money and needed to borrow some. Then she would hand the coins over for me. Sometimes she slipped half her sandwich onto my napkin like it was no big deal. I stared at him, stunned. My mind tried to grab the memory again, but it still felt just out of reach, like a dream you can't fully remember after waking up. "That was you?" I whispered. Adrian nodded. "Yes, Mom." Nina's face softened as she looked down at my hand. "That sounds like you," she said quietly. "You always give people things even when you shouldn't." A small laugh broke out of me, weak and shaky. "Well," I said, "I suppose I didn't learn to stop." Nina shook her head. "Don't stop," she said, "just don't let people take from you." The room went quiet again, but it wasn't the lonely kind. It was the kind where hearts are speaking without shouting. A knock came at the curtain. Helen peeked in. "Mrs. Hart," she said, "your vitals look good. I'm going to help you sit up a bit more in a few minutes, okay?" I nodded. Helen glanced at Nina. "Still no word from your husband," she added carefully. Nina's eyes flashed. "Good." My stomach clenched at that. Even after everything, part of me still wanted Tom to show up and prove me wrong. That part of me was small now, but it still existed. Adrian looked at me and spoke softly, like he didn't want to push, only to help. "Mrs. Julia," he said, "you don't have to decide anything today. Today is for healing." I let those words sit inside me. Healing. Not just my body, something else too. Nina squeezed my hand. "One day at a time," she whispered. I took a breath, then another, and for the first time in a long time, "one day at a time" didn't feel like a sentence. It felt like a plan. The next morning, the sunlight came in through a thin gap in the blinds. It made soft stripes on the wall like someone had drawn lines with a pencil. I slept in small pieces. I would drift off, then wake up to a beep, or a nurse checking my IV, or the ache in my belly reminding me I was still healing. Nina was still there when I opened my eyes again. She had her head resting on her arms on the little table, but her fingers were still touching the edge of my blanket, like she didn't want to lose contact even while she slept. I watched her for a moment and felt my chest fill with something warm. Then the warmth turned into worry, because Nina shouldn't have to be the adult in the room. But she was. I moved my hand slightly. The blanket rustled. Nina's eyes snapped open right away. "You're awake," she said quickly, sitting up. Her hair stuck up a little on one side. She tried to smooth it down with her palm. I managed a small smile. "Did you sleep at all?" "A little," she said. "Don't worry, I'm fine." That was Nina, always trying to be strong. Nurse Helen came in with my morning medicine and a small cup of water. She checked my blood pressure and asked about my pain in a careful voice. After she finished, Helen didn't rush out. She hesitated, then said, "Mrs. Hart, Mr. Cole asked if it's okay for him to stop by for a short conversation. Only if you want." My stomach fluttered. Adrian had been kind. But talking about my life felt like opening a drawer I kept locked for years. Nina answered before I could. "Yes," she said. "He can come." Helen nodded and stepped out. A few minutes later, Adrian came in. He wasn't carrying a big group of people or making a scene. It was just him, a folder under his arm, and the same calm look in his eyes. "Good morning, Mrs. Julia," he said. "Good morning," I whispered. He glanced at Nina. "Thank you for being here." Nina crossed her arms. She shouldn't have to beg for someone to stay. Adrian didn't disagree. He simply nodded, like he respected her honesty. He pulled the chair closer, not too close, and sat at an angle so it didn't feel like an interrogation. It felt like a person sitting with another person. "I want to be careful," Adrian said. "I don't want you to feel pressured. But there are a few things I want you to know and a few choices you should have." Choices. That word sounded strange in my head. I was used to rules, used to we can't, used to later. Adrian opened the folder, but he didn't shove it in my face. "First," he said, "your medical care comes first. The hospital will make sure your recovery plan is clear and safe. Dr. Nasser will explain everything again when you're ready, and you can ask questions as many times as you want. I nodded slowly. Second, he continued, no one should be giving you paperwork to sign while you're not fully alert and comfortable. If anyone tries, you can say no. My cheeks warmed. I don't like conflict, I admitted. Nina leaned forward. Grandma, saying no is not conflict, it's protection. I looked at Nina and saw how serious she was, not dramatic. Not loud, just sure. Adrian's voice stayed gentle. You can also ask for someone you trust to be present, he said. Nina, or Nurse Helen, or a patient advocate. I frowned. A patient... what? A person whose job is to protect your rights in the hospital, Adrian explained simply. They help make sure no one talks over you and no one tricks you. Tricks. The word made my stomach tighten again. Tom doesn't trick, I said out of habit. But even as I said it, my mind replayed Dr. Nasser's warning about rushed forms. Nina's eyes held mine. He might, she said quietly, and even if he doesn't mean to, he might still do it. I swallowed. My throat felt thick. Adrian set the folder down and looked at me with real patience. Mrs. Julia, he said, can we practice something small? Practice? I repeated. Yes, he said. Just words. Simple words. The kind that protect you. I felt silly, like a child learning to speak, but my hands were shaking under the blanket, and I knew why. Okay, I whispered. Adrian spoke slowly. Try this. I want to understand what I'm signing. My mouth went dry. I stared at the ceiling for a second, then forced my eyes back to him. I want to understand what I'm signing, I said. My voice was weak, but it was mine. Nina nodded like she was proud, but she didn't say it out loud. She just squeezed my hand. Adrian continued. Now, I need time to decide. I took a breath. I need time to decide. The words felt strange, heavy, like holding a new tool I had never used. Adrian nodded. Good. And one more. Please speak to me. Not about me. That one hit me hard. Because I couldn't count how many times people spoke around me like I was furniture. I blinked fast. Please speak to me, I said, voice shaking. Not about me. The beeping machine kept its steady rhythm, but it didn't feel like a warning anymore. It felt like proof I was still here. Helen came in again, carrying a clipboard. She paused when she saw Adrian, then gave him a small, respectful nod. Mrs. Hart, Helen said, Dr. Nasser will come later today to go over your discharge steps. No rush. Adrian looked at Helen. Thank you, he said. And please make a note. Mrs. Hart wants Nina present for any major conversations. Helen's pen moved at once. Already noted, she said, and I'll remind the team. I stared at Helen, surprised. People were writing down what I wanted. Like it mattered. Nina exhaled slowly, like she had been holding her breath for days. Adrian turned back to me. Your body needs rest, he said. So we'll keep this simple today. Eat when you can, drink water, walk a little when the nurses say it's safe, and remember those sentences. I nodded. He stood up, but he didn't rush away. He looked at me like he wanted to say one more thing. You were kind to a hungry child, he said softly. That kindness didn't disappear just because someone treated you poorly. But now it's time to aim some of that kindness at yourself. My eyes filled again, but I didn't feel ashamed this time. Nina leaned close to my ear. We're doing this your way, she whispered. No more being pushed. I closed my eyes for a moment and breathed. For the first time since I woke up alone, I felt something settle inside me. Not a big answer. Not a perfect plan, just a quiet truth. I wasn't alone anymore. That afternoon, Nurse Helen helped me sit up longer. My legs felt weak, like they forgot how to work, but she told me it was normal. Nina walked beside me in the hallway, holding my elbow like I was made of glass. The hallway smelled like clean sheets and hand soap. Wheels squeaked. People spoke in low voices. A baby cried somewhere far away. Life kept moving, even though my world felt changed. When we got back to my room, I saw it right away. A cheap bouquet of flowers sat on the small table. The petals looked tired, like they had been picked too early and left in a hot car. My stomach dropped. Nina's hand tightened on my arm. "He was here," she said. Before I could ask who, the curtain moved. Tom walked in. He wore the same jacket he always wore when he wanted to look nice. His hair was combed. His face had that practiced expression, half smile, half annoyance, like he was trying to appear caring without actually feeling it. "Well," he said, looking around. "You're awake?" He said it the way someone says, "So the package arrived?" My throat went tight. Tom stepped closer and lifted the bouquet like he expected applause. "I brought you flowers," he announced. Nina didn't smile. She didn't even glance at them. Tom noticed her reaction and cleared his throat, still smiling too hard. "I figured I should come back. Parking here is a joke, by the way. The prices are ridiculous." He chuckled like it was funny. No one laughed. I stared at him, and my chest began to shake in small, silent tremors. I remembered waking up alone. I remembered Helen's words. I remembered my sobs hurting my stitches. Tom set the flowers down and glanced at the chair Nina had been using. "So," he said, "how long are we planning to make this a family sleepover?" Nina's eyes flashed. "As long as she needs," she said. Tom's smile slipped. "I'm talking to my wife." Nina stood straighter. "And I'm her family." Tom turned to me, voice suddenly softer, like he wanted to pull me back into the old pattern. "Julia," he said, "don't let her make this into a big thing. I left for a reason. Parking was too expensive. I'm not made of money." My cheeks burned. I could feel the old habit rising in me, the habit of smoothing things over. "It's okay, Tom. Don't worry, Tom. I understand, Tom." But then I heard Adrian's words in my mind, clear and steady. "You are not a burden." And I heard Nina's voice too. "Stop believing him." My hands gripped the blanket. "Tom?" I said quietly. He looked pleased, like he had won. "Yes?" he asked. My voice shook, but I kept going. "I woke up alone." Tom waved a hand. "You were asleep." What difference did it make? The words hit me like cold water. Nina stepped forward. "It made a difference to her," she said. Tom's eyes narrowed. "You're not the patient here." "I know," Nina replied. "That's why I'm protecting the patient." Tom's jaw tightened. He looked around the room, noticing things. Extra blanket, chair close to the bed, a fresh water cup. Then his eyes landed on a small card on the counter. It had the hospital logo and a printed name, Patient Advocate. His face changed again. Not angry, not scared. Calculating. "Who's been talking to you?" he asked me. I swallowed. "The nurses," I said. "The doctor. Nina." Tom leaned in slightly. "Julia, you don't need all this. You just need to come home and rest. I'll handle everything." The words "handle everything" used to sound safe. Today they sounded like a cage. "I want to understand what I'm signing," I said, repeating the sentence Adrian taught me. Tom blinked. "What?" "I want to understand," I said again, a little stronger, "what I'm signing." Tom's smile came back, stiff and fake. "You don't need to worry about paperwork. I've always taken care of that." Nina's voice cut in. "That's the problem." Tom turned to Nina sharply. "Excuse me?" Nina didn't flinch. "You don't get to make choices for her while she's weak," she said. "She decides." Tom's face hardened. "She's my wife." Nina lifted her chin. "She's a person." For a moment, silence filled the room. Even the beeping felt louder. Then Tom did something he always did when he wasn't getting his way. He tried to charm his way out. He sighed dramatically and put a hand on his chest. "Fine, fine. If you want to make me the bad guy, go ahead. I came back, didn't I? I brought flowers. I'm here now." I stared at the flowers. They looked sad and out of place, like proof that effort can be fake. Tom looked at me again, and his voice turned sweet. "Julia," he said, "tell them you're okay. Tell them I didn't mean anything by it." My mouth opened. The old me wanted to say it. The old me wanted the room to feel peaceful. even if it meant swallowing my hurt. But my throat closed again, because I wasn't okay. And he did mean something by it. He meant I wasn't worth the parking fee. Nurse Helen entered just then. Holding a clipboard, she stopped when she saw Tom. "Mr. Hart," she said politely, but her eyes were firm. "Visiting hours are fine, but Mrs. Hart needs calm and rest. If there's paperwork, it will be discussed when she's fully comfortable and with whoever she chooses present." Tom forced a laugh. "Of course, I'm not here to cause trouble." Helen didn't smile back. "Good." Tom's eyes darted from Helen to Nina to me. He realized something, and I could see it in his face. He wasn't in control of this room anymore. He stepped closer to my bed again, lowering his voice like he wanted to make it private. "Julia," he murmured, "don't do this. Don't embarrass me." Embarrass. That word used to scare me. Now it made me tired. I took a slow breath, feeling the pull of my stitches, feeling my heart pounding. "I need time to decide," I said softly. Tom stared at me like I had spoken in a different language. Nina squeezed my hand. Helen stood steady. Tom's smile vanished completely. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he picked up his car keys and tapped them against his palm, a nervous habit. "Fine," he said flatly. "Rest. We'll talk later." He turned toward the door, then paused, as if he wanted to throw one last stone. "And someone better be paying for this," he muttered. Then he walked out. The curtain swayed behind him. The room didn't feel lighter right away, but it felt clearer, like fog lifting. Nina leaned close and whispered, "You did it, Grandma." Helen nodded once, approving. And when I looked down at my hands, I realized they were still shaking, but this time, they were shaking from courage. That night, after Tom left, the room stayed quiet for a long time. Not the lonely kind of quiet, the calm kind. Nina finally let herself breathe like she wasn't holding up a roof anymore. She sat back in the chair and rubbed her eyes. "I hate him for that," she whispered. I didn't tell her not to say it. I didn't defend him. I didn't make excuses. I just said, "I'm tired." Nina nodded fast. "Okay. Rest. I'm here." Nurse Helen came in once more to check my pain and my bandages. She spoke softly, like my body was a sleeping baby. "You did well today," she told me. I blinked at her. "I did?" Helen gave me a small smile. "You spoke for yourself. That matters." After Helen left, Nina leaned close. "Grandma, are you scared of going home?" The question hit me right in the chest. I stared at the blanket. The white fabric looked too clean for the mess in my heart. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Home is complicated." Nina's voice stayed gentle. "Then we don't go back to the same thing." I wanted to believe her, but fear was a stubborn thing. Fear had lived with me a long time. Fear knew my schedule. Fear knew where I kept the spare key. The next morning, Dr. Nasser came in with a folder and a calm face. He explained my discharge plan in simple steps: medicine times, what foods were best, how to walk without pulling my stitches, when to come back for a check. He looked at me when he spoke, not past me, not over me. "Do you understand?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Do you have questions?" he asked. I swallowed. "Can Nina be with me for everything?" I asked. He nodded. "Of course." Then the curtain moved, and Adrian stepped in again. He wasn't alone this time. A woman in a neat outfit came with him, holding a small notebook. She had kind eyes too, the kind that didn't judge. Adrian spoke first. "Mrs. Julia, this is Ms. Palmer. She's part of the patient support team. Her job is to help patients feel safe and understand their choices, inside and outside the hospital." The word choices still felt strange, but it also felt powerful now. Ms. Palmer smiled. "Hello, Mrs. Hart. Hello, Nina." Nina nodded, cautious but hopeful. Adrian pulled a chair closer and sat. "I want to tell you what I can do," he said, "and what I cannot do. I can't control your husband, but I can make sure you are protected while you recover." He turned the folder around so I could see it. No surprise papers, he said. No rushed signatures. No one will speak over you here. If your husband comes back and tries to pressure you, the staff will follow your wishes. And if you want him removed from the room, they will do that. My heart pounded. You can do that? Adrian nodded. This hospital is responsible for your safety. And I'm responsible for this hospital. Nina's shoulders lowered like a heavy backpack had been taken off her. Ms. Palmer spoke gently. We can also help you plan where you will rest after discharge, she said. If home doesn't feel safe or peaceful, there are other options. A relative, a short-term rehab center, even home support visits, depending on what you qualify for. I stared at her. Other options, I repeated. Options, not traps, not guilt, not fear. Adrian looked at me with steady eyes. When I was a kid, he said, I had no options. I was hungry and I was embarrassed, and I thought that was just my life. He paused. Then you showed me something different. You showed me that one person can change a day, and sometimes a whole future. My throat tightened. I'm not saying this because I own a hospital, he continued. I'm saying it because I remember who you were when no one was watching. Nina squeezed my hand. I took a breath. Then I said the words that felt like walking through a door. I don't want to go home right away, I said. The sentence came out soft, but it didn't break. Nina blinked, then nodded quickly like she had been waiting for me to say it. Ms. Palmer smiled like she was proud, but she stayed professional. Okay, she said. Then we'll plan for a safe recovery place. A few hours later, I took slow steps down the hallway with Nina on one side and Helen on the other. Every step felt like lifting a stone, but I did it. I made it. When we returned to my room, a message waited at the nurse's desk. Tom had called. He wanted to talk. He wanted to sort things out. He wanted to know when I was coming home. Helen asked, Do you want to speak with him? I looked at Nina. Then I looked at Adrian. Then I looked at my own hands that had shaken yesterday but had spoken anyway. Not today, I said. Helen nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. Okay. That simple okay felt like freedom. Later, when it was time for me to leave, Adrian walked with us to the exit. People in the hallway nodded at him, but he didn't act like a king. He acted like a man who remembered being a hungry child. At the doors he stopped. Mrs. Julia, he said softly, I can't erase what happened, but I can make sure what happens next is better. I held his gaze. Thank you, I whispered. He smiled. No, he said. Thank you. You fed a kid when he felt invisible. Outside, the air was cool and fresh. Nina helped me into the car slowly. Before the door closed, Nina leaned in and kissed my forehead. We're going to be okay, she said. And for the first time, I believed it. Because I understood something now. Being kind does not mean being used, and being old does not mean being powerless. If this story moved you, don't leave without doing one thing. Like this video, subscribe, and comment. I choose myself, so I know you're here, and so more people who need hope can find this story too.